Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
After our parents passed away in a car accident 2 years ago, it was just me and my sister left. She was born with a rare genetic condition that affected her kidneys, and over the years, her health steadily declined. When she hit stage 4 kidney failure 6 months ago, I knew I had to step up. I quit my job as a marketing executive in the city and moved back to our hometown. Working remotely as a freelancer gives me the flexibility to take her to her dialysis appointments 3 times a week and manage her strict dietary requirements. The doctors have been clear. Animal protein is absolutely forbidden for her condition. Too much protein can accelerate kidney damage, and animal protein is particularly harsh on failing kidneys. So here I was at the grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon, carefully selecting plant-based alternatives for our weekly meals. I've gotten pretty good at making these substitutes taste decent. My sister especially loves the plant-based chicken nuggets. They remind her of when we were kids and Mom would make us chicken nuggets as a special treat. I was comparing 2 different brands of plant-based ground meat when I felt someone hovering near my cart. I looked up to see an older man, probably in his 60s, peering into my shopping cart with an expression of disgust on his face. The old man loudly questioned why anyone would buy what he called processed garbage. I tried to ignore him and continued reading the nutritional information on the packages, but he wouldn't let up. He went on to ask why I didn't just buy real chicken nuggets instead of what he called fake crap. The condescending tone in his voice made my blood boil. I'd had a rough morning. My sister had been sick after dialysis, and I'd spent hours holding her hair back as she threw up. I was tired, stressed, and in no mood for some stranger's unwanted commentary on my food choices. I told him shortly that these weren't actually for me. He responded with sarcasm, asking if they were for my imaginary friend, and even chuckled at his own joke. That did it. I explained to him with forced politeness that I was caring for my severely disabled sister who was in stage 4 kidney failure and strictly prohibited from eating animal protein. I added that while she would probably prefer real chicken nuggets too, eating them regularly would speed up her death. I finished by thanking him for his opinion. The smug smile vanished from his face instantly. A nearby shopper who had been pretending not to listen dropped a can of beans. I continued, telling him that what was really processed garbage was the attitude of people who judge others without knowing their situation. I pointed out that people might buy these products for various reasons: health issues, ethical choices, religious beliefs, or simple preference. I told him he'd chosen to be rude to a stranger who was just trying to keep their dying sister comfortable and happy. The old man's face had turned red. A small crowd had gathered, and I could see a store employee watching from the end of the aisle. The old man stammered that he didn't know. I cut him off, telling him that was exactly my point. He didn't know anything about me or my situation, yet felt entitled enough to mock my choices. I asked him how many other people he had harassed in the store, and how many other carts he had inspected to share his unsolicited opinions. The store employee had walked over by this point and asked if everything was okay, addressing me politely. I responded with sweet sarcasm, saying that this gentleman was just leaving after giving me a detailed critique of my shopping choices, and suggested he probably had many other carts to inspect and people to judge. The old man tried to stammer out an apology, but I cut him off. I told him that he shouldn't have done what he did and suggested that maybe next time he'd think twice before commenting on someone else's groceries. The old man shuffled away, leaving his half-filled cart in the middle of the aisle. The store employee gave me a sympathetic smile and offered to help me find anything else I needed. When I checked out later, the cashier mentioned that they'd seen that same man harass other customers before about their food choices, but no one had ever stood up to him like that. That evening, as I watched my sister happily munching on her plant-based chicken nuggets while we watched her favorite show, I felt a sense of satisfaction. Sometimes people need to be reminded that their opinions aren't always welcome, and that kindness costs nothing. My sister might be fighting a losing battle with her health, but as long as I can make her comfortable and happy, I'll gladly face down any number of nosy strangers in grocery stores. I've been riding horses since I was 6 years old. It started as therapy after my parents' divorce, but it quickly became my passion. My grandfather owned a small ranch, and he taught me everything I know about horses. When he passed away last year, he left me his prized stallion, Thunder Spirit. Thunder Spirit wasn't just any horse, he was a champion in the making. My grandfather had trained him since he was a foal, and I spent the last 5 years helping with that training. We'd won several local competitions together, but this was our first time participating in the state championships. The prize money would help save our family ranch, which had been struggling since my grandfather's passing. Everything was going smoothly during the pre-race preparations. Thunder Spirit was in perfect condition, and our practice runs had been promising. That's when I first noticed this middle-aged woman watching us intently during our morning warm-up. She kept taking photos and making notes on her phone, which I found odd, but I didn't think much of it at the time. 2 hours before the race, I was leading Thunder Spirit back to his stall after our final warm-up when she approached me. She demanded that I withdraw from the race. When I asked her what she meant, completely confused, she clarified that she had bet her entire savings on Golden Star to win, and my horse was the only real competition. I tried to explain to her that's not how things worked and that I couldn't just withdraw. That's when she started threatening me, claiming her husband was friends with a race organizer and she could make things very difficult for me. I told her I didn't care who she was and asked her to leave us alone. I tried to walk away, but she grabbed Thunder Spirit's reins. He got startled and nearly reared up. I immediately shouted at her to let go of my horse. She responded by insulting me, calling me just a kid playing cowboy, and saying this was serious business for real adults. She declared she wouldn't let some teenager ruin her financial investment. She reached into her purse, and that's when I saw the pepper spray. Without thinking, I yanked Thunder Spirit's reins hard and stepped between him and the woman. A stable hand who had been watching the whole thing rushed over, shouting for security. The woman started spraying wildly while yelling at us to get out of her way. Some of the spray caught my arm, but most of it missed us completely. Thunder Spirit got spooked and kicked out, barely missing Karen, who fell backward trying to avoid his hooves. Security arrived within seconds. The security guard ordered her to drop the pepper spray and put her hands where they could see them. She immediately started screaming that we had assaulted her and demanded our arrest, once again bringing up her supposed connections through her husband. By now, several witnesses had gathered, including other riders and stable staff. The security cameras had caught everything, and multiple people had recorded the incident on their phones. The police were called, and they arrested Karen on the spot for attempted assault and animal cruelty. Here's the best part. The police found text messages on her phone revealing she'd planned the whole thing, including messages to her bookie about placing illegal bets. The race organizers postponed our heat until the next day to give Thunder Spirit time to calm down. When we finally raced, we didn't just win, we set a new track record. The prize money, $1,500, saved our ranch, and Karen's illegal betting scheme was exposed, leading to a major investigation into underground betting rings at horse racing events. She's now facing serious jail time for multiple charges, including animal cruelty, assault, illegal gambling, and probation violation. Her husband, who she kept bringing up, turned out they'd been divorced for 3 years, and he was actually one of the people who helped build the case against her illegal betting activities. Thunder Spirit got extra treats and attention for weeks after that incident, though he seemed to forget about it much quicker than I did. We still compete regularly, but now we always have someone watching our backs during competitions, just in case there are any other Karens out there with bright ideas about sabotage. Growing up in Florida, I always dreamed of working at one of those fancy themed resorts. You know, the ones with the magical atmosphere and characters walking around. So when I turned 16 and got the chance to work as a pool attendant, at the most famous resort in Orlando, I jumped at the opportunity. The job was pretty straightforward: keep the pool area clean, help guests with towels, and ensure everyone's safety. But what made it special was working alongside my best friend from high school. We've been close since freshman year when I started learning sign language to communicate with him. He was deaf, but that never slowed him down. If anything, it made him more attentive to guests' needs since he was always actively watching everything around him. The resort was actually great about accessibility. They made sure his name tag indicated he was deaf and knew sign language, which helped both deaf guests feel more comfortable and hearing guests understand why he might not respond to verbal requests. Everything was going smoothly until this one stormy afternoon in the middle of summer. Dark clouds started rolling in, and we got the alert about lightning in the area. It's standard procedure. Everyone has to leave the pool area immediately for safety reasons. Most guests understand this, but there's always that one person. This guest, let's call her Karen, made a huge fuss about having to leave. She complained loudly about how ridiculous this was and how she had paid good money for pool time. I tried to explain that it was for everyone's safety and assured her we'd reopen once the lightning passed. She stormed off. About 30 minutes later, the lightning cleared, but we had our usual cleanup protocol before reopening. My friend and I were collecting wet towels when I noticed Karen had snuck back in and was trying to reclaim her spot. She started shouting at my friend, telling him not to touch what she claimed were her towels. My friend continued working, completely unaware of her yelling. This seemed to infuriate her even more. She got even louder, yelling about how she was talking to him and demanding to know how he dared to ignore her. Then she walked over to where I was working. She started complaining about my coworker, saying he was being incredibly rude by purposely ignoring her and threatening to speak to our manager about this disrespect. I tried to explain, but she interrupted me, demanding to know what his problem was and asked sarcastically if he was deaf. That's when I told her that, yes, he actually was deaf, and explained about the symbol on his name tag. I went on to tell her that he was one of our best employees who helps countless deaf guests feel welcome at the resort. I finished by telling her he was my best friend and that I'd appreciate if she showed him the same respect he shows every guest. Karen's face turned as red as a sunburned tourist. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, but no words came out. Finally, she grabbed her things and speed-walked away from the pool area. Later, I told my friend about the interaction through sign language, and we both couldn't stop laughing. Karen's attempt to save her spot backfired completely. When we finally reopened the pool, she was nowhere to be seen, and a lovely family with 2 deaf children took that prime spot instead. My friend spent his break teaching the kids some resort-specific signs he'd created for different rides and attractions, while Karen watched from a regular chair in the back, looking like she'd swallowed a lemon. Even better, the family ended up writing such a glowing review about their experience with my friend that the resort started offering basic sign language training to all pool staff. After working hard for 5 years at my manufacturing job and my girlfriend putting in long hours as a nurse, we finally saved enough for a down payment on our first home together. We were over the moon when we found this beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood. The price was right, the location was perfect. Just a 15-minute drive from both our workplaces, and the previous owners had recently renovated the kitchen. It seemed like the perfect starter home for us. The first red flag came on moving day. I was carrying our chest of drawers up the stairs when it slipped slightly, making a small thud as I set it down. Within seconds, there was aggressive banging on our floor from below. I brushed it off, thinking maybe the noise had startled them. That was 2 months ago, and now I understand why the previous owners sold this place for slightly under market value. Our downstairs neighbors are an elderly couple who have apparently made it their life's mission to ensure we can't live normally in our own home. The old man is the ringleader of this torment, while his wife plays a supporting role in their crusade against basic living sounds. The problem started small. A bang on the ceiling here and there when we walked to the bathroom at night. Then came the complaints about our television being too loud during the 2 hours we watch it in the evening. Mind you, we don't even have a sound system. It's just a basic TV speakers at a volume where we can barely hear it ourselves. Just last week I was getting ready for my early morning shift. I work from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., which means I have to wake up at 4 a.m. to get ready. I was tiptoeing around the bedroom trying my best to be quiet when I heard the familiar banging below. The old man started yelling through the floor, demanding that I stop stomping around. I tried explaining through the floor that I was just getting ready for work and being as quiet as possible, but he just shouted back that we were always making noise and they could hear everything. This has become a daily routine. Every morning when I leave for work, he opens his door just to confront me. He always launches into the same tirade about young people having no respect and accusing me of stomping and banging around. I simply tell him that I'm just walking to my car to go to work, but it makes no difference. But yesterday was the final straw. My girlfriend was doing some quick cleaning during her day off, running the vacuum cleaner for maybe 10 minutes tops. Suddenly, there's knocking at our door. It's the old woman this time. She immediately started complaining that our vacuum was too loud and claimed we'd been at it for hours. When my girlfriend explained that she'd only just started 10 minutes ago, the old woman demanded we turn down the vacuum. My girlfriend had to explain, bewildered, the vacuum cleaners don't work that way and only have one speed. The old woman just insisted that we needed to figure something out because they couldn't stand the noise. They've complained about everything from us flushing the toilet at night to using our whisper quiet washing machine because it rumbles their ceiling. I finally wrote to the city council about the situation, documenting every incident and complaint. A week later, we received a response that changed everything. The housing department sent an inspector who measured our noise levels during regular activities. The results showed we were well within acceptable limits, not even close to violating any noise ordinances. They also revealed something interesting. The elderly couple had driven out the last 3 owners with similar complaints. The council issued them a warning about harassment and suggested mediation. When they refused to participate, they were given a formal notice. We learned they're actually renters, not owners, and their landlord was notified about their behavior. Apparently, this was news to their landlord, who had no idea about the previous tenants they'd driven away. 2 weeks later, we received the sweetest sound of all: silence. The elderly couple was given notice to vacate within 60 days. Their landlord personally apologized to us and promised to carefully screen the next tenants. Now we can finally enjoy our home in peace, walking normally, watching TV at a reasonable volume, and yes, even vacuuming without fear of confrontation. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.